is Terrence White. I'm representing an organization called Sandy Hook Promise. Before I get into that, I always start off my presentations by saying, I know I'll be talking about some things that are sometimes difficult to discuss, and we have different relationships with these topics. If at any point you feel uncomfortable, you maybe need to excuse yourself, an adult will make sure that you are taken care of. I just want to make sure that you all are empowered and that you feel good and that if you need to step out and take care of yourself, it's okay to do so. With that being said, Sandy Hook Promise is an organization that began after what happened at Sandy Hook Elementary. Just a show of hands, how many have heard of Sandy Hook Elementary and their story? Anybody? Okay, so for those of us that aren't as familiar, I won't go into great detail. It's something that I think maybe you should talk to your parents about. But back in 2012, there was a situation that happened at Sandy Hook Elementary where 26 people lost their life. 20 were first graders, 6 were educators. Unfortunately, after that tragedy, several members of the community, as well as parents, decided to speak up. They wanted to do something. They didn't want other families to experience this type of pain. They said, how can we make sure that we prevent these things, not only for ourselves and our family, but for other communities around the world? They started to let us know that we each have a responsibility, a shared responsibility. We have a role to play. What does it mean to create a community where everybody feels included, everybody feels seen, everyone feels connected, and closer to the ones that they're around? If we're able to do this, maybe we can prevent some of these tragedies that are occurring. But we'll talk about how to get into that in a little bit. But the first step, we have to acknowledge some of those things that prevent us from actually getting to that community, from really building that community that we want. Sometimes those places that we experience mentally, emotionally, prevent us from doing that. I want you maybe to think about a time where you experienced some of these emotions, are maybe mental spaces that aren't as positive in the moment, or maybe aren't as healthy. Maybe you felt alone, maybe you felt invisible. The reality is, sometimes when we're in these spaces, we feel like we're by ourselves. But we have to understand that each and every person on planet Earth experiences these same feelings, emotions. Maybe our situation is different. Maybe the circumstance is tailored a little bit specifically to you, but what you're going through, the feelings, we can relate. If we can honor and acknowledge that fact, we maybe can start to treat people a little bit differently. Because when we're in those places that are sometimes not as healthy for us, when we are lonely and when we sometimes are isolated, then we react or we express in ways that are sometimes unhealthy. Maybe somebody starts to bully. Maybe as a result of what they're going through, somebody decides to act out violently. Maybe that sadness evolves and it turns into depression. We, as a community, we can't wait until these things turn tragic, like what happened at Sandy Hook Elementary. These things occur in our communities, and there's things that we can do to address that. So that's what this is about. When we notice people maybe pulling away from their communities or their circles, their friends, their community of families, or whatever that is, even if it's not in this particular place, when you notice people maybe not as present in the moment, or maybe they're having issues with their development, or maybe they're hurting or thinking about wanting to hurt someone else or themselves, we have to take a moment, not to push them away, but to pull them in, to understand that we all go through things. And sometimes we react in ways that are different. Sometimes we react in ways that are very, in the moment, seem like the right thing to do, seem justifiable. But what we have to understand is that together we have to create connectedness so that we can prevent these things from happening. When we understand when people are at their best selves, when they have support, we notice when they're not at their best self. And then we can acknowledge, okay, what can we do to make sure that they get the best support that they need? Let's talk about it in 3 simple steps. The first step is to see someone for who they are and where they are. It says see someone alone. I always think about just seeing somebody as a human being, no matter where they are at that given moment and what they're dealing with at that particular time in their life. Then maybe you want to reach out. You want to connect with them, and maybe that reach out comes in the form of a hello, which is the title of this message. Start with hello, brought to you by Sandy Hook Promise. Now let's start from the beginning just to understand this a little bit. And it's not a long thing, but it's really important because I think that you all will get this and actually use this, not just in your classroom, but in your communities. Maybe you see someone alone, or you see somebody that prefers to be by themselves. Maybe they have anxiety. They feel uncomfortable. Maybe when they're around a lot of people or social gatherings or settings, maybe they feel pretty removed. They're not as present in the moment. There could be a number of different signs. Maybe that somebody's going through something. Maybe we have to pay attention to those people that are maybe a little bit more introverted than most. Not necessarily that being a bad thing. How many know what introverted means? Can you tell me what it means? Yeah, more or less. Sometimes introverted people, you kind of enjoy your own personal space. And extroverted people, you really enjoy to be social around other people. We have these things, these kind of people, and sometimes we are a little bit of both. Sometimes we're a mixture. Me, I'm pretty introverted. I enjoy my personal space. You know, I really kind of need that to refuel and get back into the world. I'm not talking about those people that are introverted or extroverted. I'm talking about maybe those moments in life where you notice that somebody is not as engaged. Maybe if they're in a place where part of their responsibility is to engage. Say, for instance, if they're in class and the teacher's trying to get them to understand something. We're asking for participation, or we're seeing if maybe you've done the work. Maybe this person hasn't done the homework or classwork and they're not participating. And sometimes we mislabel them. I've been guilty of that. Sometimes we call that, and it's bad behavior, or we say that person might be lazy, distracted. It could be a number of different things we could label one another. But sometimes it could be something else that could be preventing that person from being present or fully there in that moment. Maybe it's something that happened at home that they're distracted by. Maybe somebody said something in the classroom that's preventing them from being their best self. Maybe it's something else. It could be a million different reasons. We have no idea. Maybe they could just be shy and they don't know how to really open up. There's so many different things, and the reality is it's not just the teacher's responsibility to take care of one another or all the students in the classroom. It's also you all's. What's important is that classrooms should be academically challenging, but it should also be emotionally safe. With that being said, we have to acknowledge those moments. Where can we find these people, maybe that are suffering silently or going through things? It's not just in the classroom, like I said. Social media is a popular one. How many have a social media here? Just a show of hands. Social media. You have a social media? Yeah. Most of us do. I have some. I remember the first time I got on social media, I was about your age, maybe a little bit older. Anybody remember this thing called MySpace? No? Okay, so faculty members yet? MySpace, it might be over your heads. Take some time, go talk to your parents about it. Maybe they might have a conversation. They might know a little bit, or maybe if you have an older sibling. But MySpace, for me, was my very first social media. And I thought it was cool because it had so many cool features. It was like pre-Facebook. You had this page, this profile that you created, this representation of yourself. And there's so many cool things that made it, really personal. You could put music on the page. You could change your background. Every day my background was different. And I thought that was really cool. And so I would always be infatuated with all of the features. I was obsessed. So much so I would forget to kind of check in on those people on my page that I considered to be my friends. I was so involved in my own world, my own little bubble, that I would forget to just see that sometimes sprinkled throughout those posts of those really nice selfies with the perfect light and that perfect angle, or those funny videos or quotes, they'll be sprinkled throughout people saying, hey, I'm going through things, or maybe I feel isolated. I'm hurting in various ways, and they'll be crying for help. And I thought about how many times I would see things that could be maybe a sign, maybe a cry out, and I'd scroll past it, or maybe I'd give it a little bit of attention, and then I'd kind of continue throughout my day. I thought about how I was part of the problem in the community. not taking the time to really see people. Or even in the hallways, in the real world, when I would walk in the hallways and I would try to avoid eye contact with people, and I would try to avoid any interaction that might be awkward, that might not go how I want it to go. It might not be as smooth. There's so many different things that prevented me from simply just reaching out and connecting. Maybe if you're like me, after you see people, you decide, okay, I do actually want to reach out. I want to connect. You think about all the things that could go wrong. All the many things like, well, what will they think of me? Won't they think I'm strange just randomly walking up to them and saying, hey, I'm Terrence, who are you? Or maybe, do they really want to talk to me? I'm not the most social. I'm not the most popular. We have so many different things that prevent us from simply reaching out and connecting. Now, this is the participation point in the actual presentation. I want to know from you all, what makes it difficult for you at this point in your life to simply connect with one another? People that you see all the time, every day, what are those things that make it hard for you all to just simply connect with one another? Say hello. Okay.
I really like where you're going with this. I wish this actually worked because in this school we've had so many messages saying stop bullying and stop being mean to each other, stop bullying and like, all of that kind of stuff. And it never works. Like everyone keeps getting into fights and it doesn't work.
It's interesting that you say that because one, it takes a lot of courage to speak up and to say exactly what those things are that sometimes prevent us from connecting. And I'm really glad you said that because the reality is a lot of times there'll also be continuous conflict. We say like we want to connect, but we still see fighting happening in the world. We would love to say, all right, let's bring in harmony, everybody to be happy and in a blissful state. But we still see, even around the world, all of these different things that are occurring. But it doesn't mean that we still shouldn't try. It doesn't mean that maybe that point in which you decide to connect with someone, it might be that one opportunity that one individual gets for an authentic, sincere connection with another human being that's so meaningful, they decide to do something maybe more healthier for themselves in the community rather than destructive. And so we have to understand maybe our perspective of one another, even when we sometimes, want to speak up. I even heard some people, we have those moments where we kind of think about one another and we have our opinions. And I can always understand, as individuals, we have these uniqueness. Sometimes we think our differences are what, push us away. But those are the things that should connect us. Which brings me to the good news, the aspect I really, really want you all to pay attention to. There's things that we can do to help us during that transition, our introduction period, where we may have doubts, where we may have fears or think that maybe this isn't going to work. Maybe this opportunity is just another thing I'm just putting out there, but maybe it will. Maybe I just try something different. Maybe we sit with somebody. Maybe somebody who may feel alone, or maybe we just sit with somebody who we just want to connect with. I'll tell you guys a short story, and the idea that sometimes our energy is something that can really be influential for somebody. So when I was maybe a few months back, I remember looking on Instagram, and I was looking at one of my friend's stories, and I noticed that something seemed a little off, and I wanted to reach out to him. But before I could, one of my other friends reached out to me and told me that our mutual friend was going through a really tough time. His family was dealing with a really difficult experience. They had just had a loss in the family in an unexpected way. And I knew, this is something that is tough to deal with. I had experienced that in my life at a young age. I could empathize. I could really understand where he was. And so, I reached out and I called him, we talked. But I knew it was more that I could do. At the time, I wasn't really in the city. And maybe a few weeks later, I went over there to his house. We just hung out. In between that time, we kept in contact. But when I got to the city, we just hung out and we just played video games all night long, all the way until the sun came up. Till I was falling asleep with the controller in my hand. and we talked about everything. We didn't necessarily talk about, what his family was going through or the pain that they were experiencing, but we did just talk about things that we had in common. We just talked about the video game. We just sat in a shared activity. For him and for me, it was a therapeutic thing. It was a starting point for a new process of healing, a new process of finding a healthier way to deal with some of the pain that we experience in life. There's so many different things that we go through, and sometimes simply sharing your energy with somebody in your community, seeing them, that first step, right? Seeing them that maybe they're in a place where they need some support, and then deciding to connect, going over, or maybe reaching out over social media, or maybe you leave a handwritten note, whatever those small things are, but deciding to connect. As individuals, this list can go on and on. If it's reaching out over social media or inviting somebody to hang out or give it a simple gesture, instead of avoiding eye contact, leaning into those awkward moments, those moments of doubt where we think it might not work, actually looking at somebody on purpose. When you see them in the hallway, give them a warm smile. Somebody that you don't usually talk to, give them a wave, maybe a head nod, just to see them and let them know that you recognize them as part of your community. There's small things as individuals we can do. As a school, we can take it a step further. You can have No One Eats Alone Day, many school-wide events that can bring people together. I personally really enjoy food. I'm not going to lie, it's one of my favorite things. How many, just a show of hands, enjoy food? Just a show of hands. Let me just see.
It depends on what type of food.
It depends, But the reality is, as soon as I said that, there's a response, right? We enjoy food. Everybody, stay with me. Stay with me. Y'all can put your hands down. Food is something that, one, most people enjoy, but two, we all need. We can use it as an opportunity for us simply to connect with one another. We set the table, everybody get in the same space. It could be in the place that you normally eat, or it could be in a non-traditional place. But you break bread and you decide to eat together. There's so much to discover over the course of a meal, something that disrupts the norm. Maybe as a school you have a mixed grade social with other schools and connecting it with other grades. Hey, what are your challenges? As you all are in a particular grade, or hey, I'm headed to that grade, and you're in that district, or I'm moving to that school, or I'll be headed, I have siblings in that area, or what are those things that you can help inform me with? Maybe talk to high school students, hey, what schools are you applying to? This might inform me and help me. We're on the same career path. Give me 1 second. We'll have some time for questions at the end as we wrap up, and we won't be much longer, but I want us to understand there's so many key things that we can do, not just as individuals, as school-wide, whether it's mixed grade socials or even something as simple as a name tag day, a hey day, where everybody wears name tags. And when you greet people, you greet them with their names. You make it a little personal. And when you say, hey, Terrence, maybe this first week, and then next week, now there's a nickname. Hey, what's going on, T? Or maybe after that, you forget the whole introduction. How was your weekend? Hey, is your family okay? What's going on? There's a whole lot that starts to develop after us just starting with hello, simply deciding to connect, which is that last step. As we bring it on home, this is something I want us to pay attention to. After you see people, you decide you want to connect. Then you say, okay, I'm actually going to do it. You find a way to greet somebody in an authentic and sincere way. Maybe you say hi. Maybe you say hello, hey, but you greet them with sincerity. You ask a question, maybe. Maybe use an icebreaker, but make it about them. Ask why, and you can validate that person. You let them know that they have value within your community, and vice versa. You can give your perspective on that same topic. Simple ways to just have a conversation, just a simple roadmap to remind us that it's not so difficult for us to simply connect with one another. 8 out of 10 people are hesitant to start a conversation, yet 8 out of 10 are happy that they did. Maybe you're part of that too, and you don't feel any hesitation or fear, but maybe you're like me and most people, and you have those moments of doubt where you don't think, I don't know, I don't necessarily want to put myself out there. You have those moments of fear that start to set in and affect your mind, which affects your actions. And as a community, we remain stagnant in the same place emotionally. We don't evolve because we're not connecting. It's important for us to do that. It's simple steps. Maybe you ask somebody about who they are. Hey, do you have a nickname? Or when did you move to town? I'm from Los Angeles, California, so anytime someone asks me, I'm giving them a whole story. Hey, this is how I came here. This is how I ended up in Providence, or right in front of you all. Maybe you can talk to them about if yous. Hey, if you were a superhero or had superpowers, what superpowers would you have? Or maybe you could talk about some of your favorites. Your favorite food, which again is one of my favorite topics. Or maybe your favorite holidays, favorite artists, favorite movies. There's so many things. See, you're ready already to connect. These are things that we get excited about, but you share and you also listen. That's the important part, listening to one another. Maybe you could do would you rathers and have a whole list of comparing. Hey, would you rather, I don't know, live in the city or the country? Would you rather, once you learn to drive a gas or electric car? These small questions gives you a little bit of insight into who that person is, or maybe how they think, or what their interests are. You could talk about where you've been, my shoes, where you've traveled to, or where you'd like to go. First time you ever left the state or the country, or where you like to go when you decide to take that first vacation, or maybe somewhere in your own backyard that you frequent. Hey, this is my favorite park, favorite hiking trail, favorite place to just hang out by the water. These are small things you can share and even use as an experience. Take other people, your friends, and you actually build a new bond and a new way of connecting. Those handwritten notes are really, really small in terms of time, but really, really big in terms of impact. Imagine if you wrote your parent or a peer, hey, Dad, I really appreciate you always making sure I'm up and out, on time for school. I have perfect attendance because of you. Or hey, Miss Smith, Mr. Lewis, it's been a tough semester, but I really appreciate all the things that you've invested, and I'm starting to really get these lessons are understand the actual work and material. They get that note, they appreciate, but not only that, they also see that what they're investing into you, it's not going unnoticed. It's actually being reflected back in those little small notes, those small details. Even if it's a scratch piece of paper, pencil, pen, these small things can really make somebody's day, which can maybe make somebody make a difference in their life. Why should you start with hello? It's not just about the community that's inclusive and connected, that we all benefit from, even if we're not an active participant, but I encourage us all to be active builders in that community. We have a role. So what will you do actively? Maybe it's to maybe have a friendship. Starting with hello, you could build a bond. You could be sitting next to someone now, there's a strong bond, or maybe even weeks from now, you decide to connect, and there's a new bond that blossoms. Maybe it could be to make a difference in someone's day. Maybe it could be to make a difference in their life. Maybe it could be to get someone help. There's so many different things that comes with just simply starting with hello. But we together have to understand that it's not going to happen overnight. The proof that it works is that maybe one day you might be able to say, hey, I just gained a friend. It's those small things. Maybe you can say, hey, I found a way to influence society in my own particular way by just starting with hello. Maybe I found a way to help find somebody else their value, help them find their worth. Maybe I was able to find my own worth, whatever that was. Starting with hello can bring so many things, so many achievements. Again, it doesn't happen overnight. But we can't, as a society and community, we can't wait until these tragedies occur to say, what can we do better? When things like Sandy Hook Elementary and what happened to them back in 2012, with that community experience, it has to remind us, it was what other communities also go through. We have to say, what can we do now? We can't wait until these tragedies continue and continue. What can we do to prevent that? How can we let people know that we care about them? How can we continue the conversation? Talk to your parents about, hey, what can we do to build inclusion and connectedness in our communities, in our household? Talk to your parents, our peers, or your even teachers. Say, hey, can we build a group on campus, a club? Safe Promise Club is a way so many students are being mobilized. Students Against Violence Everywhere. It's a great opportunity for you all to create a club and say, let's have some school-wide events, get some resources, and do something different in our community. Anything that became popular, any movement that actually made a difference didn't start off popular. It didn't start off like, all right, this was something that I always knew was going to change everything. It took one person, then it took two people, and then it took a community and build and build. And it takes us each and every opportunity to just see people as human beings, reminding us ourselves, what does it mean to be human? And to go through life, life's ups and life's downs, as we all do. Decide to connect with one another and find a way to just start with hello that's authentic to who you are as an individual, as well as a school. Thank you all. That's the end of my presentation. Please give yourselves a round of applause for just being such a great audience. Sandy Hook Promise, is an organization that really thrives on building a community, starting with our children, our young people, our students who are our future, making sure first that they're safe, and promoting a message about inclusion, about connectedness, how we can come together, see each other as human beings, and realize that, life hits us all in different ways, but what's important is that we are connected and we support one another in those difficult times, because we all have them, we all go through them. So in those times we have to be there for one another, and it's not too early to remind our young people and to also empower them, to give them the tools to be able to do that. Not only be there for themselves and their peers, but also find ways to learn from adults, in new ways, find ways to connect and build new skills and connect in new and creative ways.